We're in the private gardens at the home of the President of Liberia. When this West African nation emerged after 14 years of civil war, it needed more than just a leader. It needed an Iron Lady. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf spent most of her life as a political dissident, and for that, she received 2 exiles, a treason charge, a prison sentence, and countless threats on her life. She emerged as Africa's first ever woman head of state, an incredible lady. Underneath it all, she's a mother, a grandmother, helping to rebuild a fractured nation. Born in the African nation of Liberia in the 1930s, as a young woman, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf left Africa for America, where she excelled as a student. She earned an undergrad from the University of Colorado and a master's degree from Harvard University's School of Government. Armed with knowledge and brimming with passion, Johnson Sirleaf went back to Liberia. Her goal, to bring democracy to her unstable and war-ravaged nation. She spoke up, was thrown into jail, and then was exiled. This didn't stop her though. She returned to Liberia, and in 2006, this 67-year-old grandmother was elected Africa's first woman head of state. Madam President, first allow me to say thank you for welcoming us into your beautiful home.
First of all, let me say how very pleased we are that you and your associates, could make the trip to Liberia to come and join us.
Well, if I may start by asking, looking back now with a few years at your inauguration, you took over the nation with a near impossible task. 14 years of internal conflict, a near destroyed economy, a capital in ruins, child soldiers. How are you not simply overwhelmed with all the tasks in front of you?
Well, I tell you, the challenges energized me. No question about it. We inherited a broken nation, a collapsed economy, infrastructure in ruins, and everybody said to me, this is impossible. And at the same time, we're trying to introduce democracy and respect the different freedoms and rights of people. So people said, to be able to carry out this task, you really need a dictator. You need a military person to be in charge. You've got all these, ex-militia people, or warring faction groups, young people only accustomed to violence for most of their lives. How are you going to control them? But for me it was a challenge. This is an opportunity for me to do the things I've been saying needed to be done all these years.
Well, if I could ask, how would you describe Liberia today, 5 years on?
Oh, Liberia is a transforming place. It's a place where kids are back in school. Schools were all closed. It's a place where many kids, 6-year-olds, have seen lights for the first time in their lives, or running water, from a tap rather than from a bucket, where people are beginning to move around free. People can go to sleep at nights and not worry that they'll have a raid on their homes or something. Well, we'll still have robbers and all of that, but still there's a peace. And more importantly, aside from all this, the fiscal structure, the policies we put in place, the institutions we'll be building, the freedoms, the talk shows where people get on the show and they say anything they want to say, But I think if I were to say what it is that really, really I say we've accomplished, is the restoration of hope.
That's beautiful.
Hope in people who now see that they have a life, that they're a part of it, that they can be whatever they want to be in an environment that will give them the opportunity to do so.
As the first head of state who's a woman in Africa, how do we empower women in this continent, women who spend their days often searching for water or for firewood? How do we empower them to follow that call you put out to them to be leaders?
I tell you, the empowerment is now becoming from within. I see women who could not read or write, literate today. They're telling me, I want to go to school. When I voted 2005, I voted with a thumbprint.
Yes.
When I vote in 2011, I'm going to vote with my initial. I see rural women out there participating in meetings, and they tell me, never before were we able, if there were meetings to discuss what's going on in the society, the women were never there. It was always the men. Today they are there, and their voices are heard. So it's the whole transformation of women and what they can be and their role in society to me, that's the most, one of the exciting things too that I say, because I tell people, I say, I represent the expectations, you know, and the ambition of women. And so whatever I do, I must do it for them. So that door will open even wider, and it's opening. Women are vying for leadership positions in all levels of society today. I always tell my best story about, you know, how we have influenced by my position people to think of themselves differently. And that story is of a little girl in one of the rural villages. This little girl was, you know, fighting with a little boy over something, and the principal came out and admonished the girl and said, "You're a little girl. Girls don't fight. You know, you're supposed to be there." And she stood for a little while, and then she turned to him and said, "Teacher, please be careful how you talk to me. Don't forget a woman is president."
We can do anything. We can be anyone.
If you think women became and truly ruled the world, do you think we'd still have war?
There would be very few wars, if any at all. I think there may still be, you know, skirmishes and exchanges and violence over land issues and things like that. But if women ruled the world, I think we would not have that, because women bring to that responsibility a certain caring, a certain sensitivity, you know, of ensuring that people's welfare are attended, a means of settling disputes through dialogue and through conversation, because a woman does that in the home. As a mother, among the children, she's always settling disputes among children and doing it in such a civic way. So I don't think we'd have as many wars if you have more women leaders.
And when you look at strong women who had an influence in your life, you write about your mother, you talk about your mother, was there a word of advice, a teaching that you still hold very close to you from her?
Yes. Our mother always taught us honesty, hard work, humility. I remember the 3H. And I think that has stayed with all of us, me and all of my siblings. That those are the code of conduct that guides our action.
You've accomplished the near impossible in the political, but also in your own life. An early marriage, an abusive relationship, no post-secondary education, and yet you became a Harvard-educated senior official with the United Nations. What advice would you give to people who feel limited and trapped by the circumstances in their own life?
To stay the course, to set their goals and stay the course, and never be distracted by the difficulties, by the obstacles, because you can't surmount them. If you remain focused, if you remain committed, and if you stay on the course of trying to achieve your goals, you'll get there.
And looking at your own life, you've not only, you know, left that abusive relationship, you've faced arrests, threats of torture, exile from your own nation, and yet you were always incredibly resilient. Where does that strength come from?
You know, I'm not sure if I can even answer that. I think it's that inner courage, that inner commitment, you know, that I know I can do it. I want to be different. I want to be able to do what people think cannot be done. And you know, the one thing about that is every time you leap over a barrier, every time you overcome an obstacle, it's almost like it re-energizes you, and you set the goal a bit higher and higher. And each success just propels you on to another layer of success.
Considering how much that you've faced and overcome, I want to ask, what are the moments that bring you the greatest joy, the greatest happiness?
At this moment, it's just being around the children. You know, I said, I'd love to see Liberian children smile again. I said it in 2006 in my inauguration address. And today when I go out there and the kids just clamor to come around and they're smiling, I think those are my greatest joy, because I've brought back to them something that has been missing in their lives.
when we were in your home, I noticed how many photos you had, not only of world leaders, but of children. Incredible numbers that you, and surrounded by kids, surrounded by children, and of course surrounded by your own children. How is it working side by side, the trials and tribulations and the fun and hardships and joys of working with your own son, your own family? It must be quite an opportunity to be entirely together as a family.
The support from the family, the way we live together, almost like, you know, friends and brothers and sisters and whatnot, that in itself makes my life easier. And they've accepted the things I have to do, like not getting home until 10, 11 o'clock in the night. Yes. But then in the breakfast morning, when we're together, nobody misses the fact that they have to see me for the rest of the day. And then, you know, the grandchildren, whenever they come, many of them are out of the country, but whenever they come for holidays, and you know, I'm able to, that's the time I'm able to maybe sit in the pool and see them. So that keeps me going.
How has being a mother and being a grandmother prepared you to be a president?
I think what it's enabled me to do is to set my goal. It's enabled me to be strong. It's enabled me to also be sensitive to all the things around me. And even as I know I have to take hard decisions to really get some things done, at the same time I try to balance those hard decisions with some sensitivity to those who will be affected by the hard decisions. So I'm always balancing between the Iron Lady, as I'm called, and my Ellen,
yes.
And finding the right way to achieve the objective with the right balance.
Is there a parallel to raising a nation and raising a child?
Very much so, very much so, because the challenges are there. The gradual progress can be seen, and you keep trying to build upon what you've done and to improve it and enhance it and expand it. It's the same as you watch a child grow. Their requirements and their obstacles are different. As the nation begins to improve and transform, it's the same thing, quite strong parallels.
We can do anything. We can be anyone.
I'm always amazed whenever I travel in rural Africa, and in a number of the villages you find, because of AIDS and because of war and because of the search for jobs, the adult generation sometimes is missing, and you find the very young for children, and you find the very old as grandparents. And it strikes me that grandparents are the cornerstone of Africa. And I don't know if you share that belief.
Oh yes, I do. I think grandparents are at that radar that we all look at. You know, that's the pivot. That's the one we circle around. That's the one that really is always looking at the flock to make sure. And our parents are all, you know, those of us who our children look at us as parents, we were never there most of the time, because trying to get an education, most times under conditions of low income, trying to get a profession, trying to move up the ladder of success. And most times that anchor is the grandparent who will reach out to the young ones and make sure that they stay on the course, that they go to school, and you know, in Africa we take care of our old people. We don't put them in nursing homes and abandon them when they get old.
It's a lesson we need to learn.
Yeah, they stay with us.
Yes.
We take care of them.
As someone who's lived both in the States so much, around the world for that matter, but also here in Africa, what lessons do you think Africa has to teach us in North America?
The ability to go beyond one's immediate family and see the society as one, to reach out to others. We call it here the extended family system, you know, where those who are able have to take care of those who aren't.
I remember once seeing the cover of The Economist, and the headline was "Lost Continent," with an image of Africa. And some people have this image of Liberia and Sierra Leone, and the conflicts, and now the Congo and Sudan, and they've just lost hope. How do you even begin to respond to people who have that feeling in North America as donors, as citizens?
We ask them to come and see it for themselves. No, Africa is certainly changing. Yes, we had a difficult period in the 80s, you know, when growth declined sharply, when we were trying to move away from autocratic rules and from military rule and all of that. Our economic policies were on skids. But today it's changing. The growth rate, the average annual growth rate in the African continent is equal to any other. Look around at transformed economies, whether we're dealing with Ghana or Tanzania, you know, Burkina Faso. I mean, there are just so many. About 2 decades ago, we had only about 3 or 4 democracies in Africa. Today, they're well over 18. So the transformation is on. It's taken a while, but it's definitely there. The progress is there. It's established by empirical evidence. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, bad news sell. So most of the time, we still have pockets of instability, pockets of violence, pockets of conflict, and those are the ones that hit the story of pockets of starvation in certain places. And so people focus on those, and when they see that, they think that this characterizes the entire continent. Far from it. Those are just the remaining pockets of problems. Across the continent, the progress is real.
As you approach the end of your first term, in your opinion, what are your greatest successes, but also your greatest shortcoming?
Greatest successes is what we've done in improving infrastructure, in setting our agenda, in being able to restore basic services to Liberian people, and like I said, to give them hope. The one area where is probably a shortcoming is we haven't been able to address the youth unemployment as much as we wanted to. And that's because our private sector has been slow in taking off. Obviously, we still have peacekeeping soldiers here. That sends a signal that all is not well, peace is still fragile. And so, you know, private capital is very, very cautious in how they enter, and so they've been waiting for this confidence to build. Now the confidence is coming. Today, we're signing concession agreements to open up our mines and our agriculture and all of that. And in another 2 years, our oil sector is beginning. In another 2 years, the private sector will be there, and that will be the absorptive capacity for our young unemployed. Also, it takes time for us to give them a skill. Many of them have not had a chance of schooling. So that has been a busy shortcoming. What do we do with our young people, you know?
We can do anything. We can be anyone.
You've been named by The Economist as the greatest president in the history of Liberia. Newsweek this year named you one of the top 10 heads of state globally. You've accomplished so much. You struggled and sacrificed so hard to reach here. Why run for a second term? I look around at your beautiful home, your loving family. You're not even tempted to just swim in the pool, play with your grandkids?
I'm very much tempted to do just what you say. But I also have an unfinished agenda. We've laid the foundation. We've gathered up, we've put all the instruments in place and the policies in place. We've set the agenda. We've started the process, and I don't want to see regression. I want it to be on an irreversible course. We're almost there. My fear is that without continuity in being able to cross the last few barriers, that if we don't get the right person that follows me, we'll see a lot of rolling back.
Are you concerned that that next person who follows you may not do the reforms and frankly may not let go of power democratically, as we saw happen in Liberia and in many parts of Africa?
That's my fear, and that's the fear of all of those who have worked so hard to get the progress that we have, that we just need to do a bit more where all we've done becomes institutionalized. That is not just tied to me and my reform agenda, but that we have those institutions that can carry them on.
Do you ever feel that this is a puzzle rebuilding a country that just can't be finished?
I will not finish it. because the task is too great. But I will have put all the essential pieces in place so that whoever follows me will be able then to bring it all together into one great mosaic.
Final question. There have been many labels placed upon you. The Iron Lady, Ma Ellen, the first African woman head of states, a grandmother. How do you want to be remembered?
As someone who made a difference in the lives of the majority of the average Liberian, that they can look back and say, because of her administration, I have a better life. My potential can be reached.
Madam President, a true honor to spend time with you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and let me also say how much we admire what you've done in your relatively short life to be able to change the lives of people. I hope that we can see many more of you, many more of me. The world will be a better place.